Good morning. Let me know if y'all can hear me okay, please. Everything sound all right? Thank you, Carl, Bridget, and join palms as we begin. And you can repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. Keeping the palms joined. All right. Good morning, everybody. Good to be with you all. If you're here for the first time, welcome. You'll see a chat box there on your screen. Feel free to say hello, introduce yourself, anything you want to share. It's nice to be back in person with you all. Nice to see a full house here at the temple. I'm just kidding. There's nobody here. But hopefully soon. I think we're getting, I shouldn't say I think, well, as of this moment, we're getting closer. So hopefully another couple weeks at most, and we'll be back sitting here again live and in person. But for the moment right now, it is still just myself in an empty meditation hall, which is quite beautiful, and all of you. So glad you're here. It's interesting. I'm not really sure what direction I'm going to go with this, if anything at all, but I wanted to read it anyways. Something I thought was really, really cool. So a lot of you are familiar with Deer Park Monastery here in Escondido, founded by Thich Nhat Hanh, who recently passed, and the great Vietnamese Zen Buddhist master, monk, engaged Buddhist, just wonderful human being, also with Plum Village in France. But obviously with his passing, the awareness of a place like Deer Park and his teachings have, I think been even greater. And they historically, as long as I've known, for many years, done what they call day mindfulness up there. And they used to be on, I think, maybe Mondays and Thursdays, or Thursdays and Saturdays, I forget, or maybe it's changed a few times. But they do day mindfulness, and it's a really wonderful practice. You can go up there and do the morning walk and meditation. The pandemic, a modified schedule, and with the recent passing, and they've had some, just schedule changes and things like that. But so I'm just kind of introducing it for those who maybe don't know it. But if you are local to San Diego, something I definitely recommend you check out. Go to the website. But so recently they've had their an RSVP system in place, which I think maybe has been there for a while now. But it's obviously filling up, even quicker than normal. A message lets me know you're here. The machine is telling me I'm unstable, as if I need a computer to tell me that. So just let me know you can hear me okay before I continue. Anyone there? Bridget, Carla, Lisa, Alice, Zach, Cemetery Man, can you all hear me okay? Somebody breaking up some, you can hear me, cut out for a minute. Okay, but it sounds like we're back, so hopefully we're okay. But so I wanted to read this, that they have a day of silence tomorrow and it's full, and we have some of our college kids going, so I've been kind of tracking the RSVPs, or at least when its seats have opened up, spaces. And I really love how clear they are with guidelines. And I'm just going to read this, and however it sits with you, it sits with you. But so they have their initial guidelines, kind of instructions, masks required, proof of vaccination required, must show your COVID vaccination, or they won't let you in. But the reason I bring it up isn't even for that. It's in addition, we ask that all guests please observe our dress code. And this is something that's, they've always had a dress code. Metaphorist Monastery is the same way. It says, out of respect for our monastic brothers and sisters, please wear sleeves that cover the shoulders. Short sleeves are acceptable. Shirts that cover the midriff, and long pants or long skirts that are loose fitting and cover the knees at all times. Please do not wear shorts, tank tops, nor tight fitting clothing. We kindly ask friends to dress modestly for the duration of their time with us, and to share this information with anyone attending the event. And I bring it up because I think it's something that, for the most part, when people go to a Buddhist monastery, I remember 25 years ago in Europe, when I graduated college and I did the backpacking thing, my buddy and I, we ended up at the Vatican one day, and I had shorts on and they wouldn't let me in. So I stayed outside. I didn't fight with anyone. But, Buddhist monasteries, they have guidelines. And for the most part, when people show up to places like that, they respect them. Because there's something in our mind that says, well, I'm going to a Buddhist place and it's a kind, peaceful, compassionate place. I don't know what people think, but and so they tend to follow these guidelines and respect them, usually. Set up guidelines. And we don't typically have problems with them, but when other people or places set up guidelines, we have problems with them. It's like if every person just walked around with a sign on their shirt that just says, my guidelines are, be nice to me. Would we follow that? My guidelines are, don't yell at me. Would we follow that? My guidelines are, be respectful. Would we follow that? And so it's always interesting to me that when things get presented or done in a Buddhist context, then the Buddhist people, or the people who show up to Buddhist places, they eat it up. They're like, oh, I'm being so respectful. I'm not wearing shorts. I've covered myself. I'm being so kind, right? But do you have that same mindset and demeanor and respect for others and other places and other guidelines when you go there? And I really didn't bring this up, for those who might be thinking it, I didn't bring this up for mask debates or discussions or any of that kind of stuff. This is beyond, it includes all of that too, but it's really more about just our ability or inability to appreciate and respect people's requests and guidelines. And when we put things into a Buddhist box, we often just follow it and say it's okay. But there are so many guidelines and rules in Buddhist temples, always have been and always will be. So I guess I introduced this as a combination of learning to really kind of respect and appreciate the practice at these places and their wishes, but also how can you bring that teaching into your own life? And if you engage every person in every place with the same mindset or mannerisms or behavior, I think is the word I'm looking for. If you bring that behavior into other people and other places, then, your life and the life of those around you might be better. So just something to think about. All right, so with that, we'll go ahead and we'll start a meditation practice. A couple things I'll tell you before we begin for those who might be sitting or joining us for the first time. Nothing's going to happen to you. You won't float away. You won't have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. You won't think nothing. Often people think meditation is about thinking nothing or going blank. You'd end up sitting there telling yourself, think nothing, think nothing, think nothing, and that's not doing you much good. You're just going to sit, you're going to breathe. I'll say things periodically to remind you that you're lost in thought and bring you back to the present moment. Posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you are in a cushion, often it helps slide into the front third. Pushing the stomach forward allows the back to straighten. Shoulders are relaxed. Hands can be on the knees or in the lap, whatever is comfortable. I'll suggest closing the eyes if comfortable or slightly open. Mouth will be open or closed, whatever is comfortable. I will guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. Most important with this practice, do not expect anything. We're just going to sit and breathe. And again, starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in Feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath, expecting nothing but to sit and breathe. And as the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it, release that thought, return attention, focus to the breath. Where's your mind? Lost in thought? Return to breath. letting go of expectations, letting go of judgment from the practice, just sitting, breathing. Keeping the mind alert, aware of each sound, each thought, each physical sensation, yet concerned with nothing but sitting, breathing. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle, know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. No one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. Once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And as you slowly open the eyes, slowly begin to move. Most important, the practice of meditation is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, it's not from anything I said. It's not from how you sit and hold the hands or cross the legs. It's not from sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It has everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being no different than any one of us who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. And what that means, very simply for all of us, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in, where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's it. This practice is learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Once we stop trying to change, fix, control, manipulate everything around us, and we work on changing our mind and our reaction to the world around us, life gets simpler. But it is a practice. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice free. Sitting, breathing, becoming aware of what you think, say, and do. And that's it. So with that, I'll pause. For me, I always really prefer just to respond to questions. If you are new, again, or joining us for the first time, welcome. You'll see a chat box there on your screen. Feel free to share any questions, thoughts, or just say hello. And we'll use the rest of our brief time this morning, and I'll respond to your questions. Bridget, good morning. Did Buddha speak out about nature, the environment? You know, I think that, well, I'll start by saying this, and, I'm wrong a lot, so, and there's a lot that I have not read or don't know. But the first thing I was going to say is I have not personally read the Buddhist Sutra on the environment or nature. That's just my way of saying I have not seen very direct, specific teachings on the environment or nature, to your question. But with that being said, um, everything the Buddha taught, and I know you know this, but I would apply this to nature, the environment, everything else. Everything the Buddha taught is about having wisdom and compassion. And that's not just for people, um, or other people, I should say, because very often we lack wisdom and compassion towards ourselves. Very often we lack wisdom and compassion towards animals. Very often we lack wisdom and compassion towards the environment, nature itself. So I think, and I'll do research or somebody else can do research on, is there like the Environment Sutra? Um, but I think it's really important to understand that the practice of loving kindness, compassion, joy, equanimity applies to everything. It applies to how we take care of our house, if you have one, your living situation, whatever that may be. It applies to how you take care of your car, if you have one, your means of transportation, your bike, how you take care of your room, how you take care of your physical self, your emotional self, your mental self, um, how you take care of family, friends, loved ones, strangers, animals, the environment, nature. So it's all right there for us, you know. And I think it's very important to be honest with ourselves when we lack compassion or wisdom for anything or anyone. We can say we have compassion or wisdom for the environment, and then we go ahead and do things that clearly show the obvious, the opposite, and it's so obvious. We can say we have compassion for animals, and then we order a cheeseburger or a steak. So it's important, I think, to bring all of these practices that I just mentioned, kindness, compassion, wisdom, joy, into every single thing we encounter. That's most important. So, I use animals a lot because it's just a practice for me that's continues to get deeper and deeper. But, to say we love and have compassion for animals, and then consume them doesn't really make sense to me. So I think it's important to be honest with yourselves around these types of things. Um, there's kind of one more piece that I'll share, Bridget, to that question, is that obviously or maybe not obviously, but for those who don't know, but yes, for 2,500 years, um, the Buddha himself and the disciples, they roamed around in the, outside nature environment, things like that, lived on the land. Um, and for over 2,000 years, you have great monks and nuns and lamas that live outdoors or live in caves or whatever it might be. And so there's, a lot of, for various reasons, I think nature gets tied into Buddhism. But where I always like to caution people is that, sitting out in nature doesn't mean you're being Buddhist. And I know, Bridget, this isn't what you're asking. I'm just rambling a bit. Um, because you could be on your couch at home in front of a TV and have tremendous compassion and wisdom. You could be out in nature with the trees and be incredibly greedy and angry. So I caution, especially those who are new, to think that Buddhism is solely about like becoming one with the universe or nature, because it's not. We're all very separate individuals with our own karma, our own individual consciousness that, yes, plays into a collective consciousness, but we still have our consciousness that we carry with us. So we have to be aware of how our karma, our consciousness impacts things around us, such as nature, the environment, animals, all of that. So just some thoughts there. Lisa, good morning. Can you talk a little today about finding a balance in material possessions, buying things, etc.? I know you've talked about a middle way. Thanks, Jeff. Yeah. This is, I think, one of the most important practices for everybody, even monastics, but especially for lay people, non-monks, non-nuns, meaning you've not left the house dweller life. You have intimate relationships or not. You have, a house or apartment or a condo or a car or a shelter or somewhere, probably, that you reside, and in that place you have things. I'm always reminded of it, if you haven't ever seen it, Lisa, or for anybody else, the old George Carlin skit, and it's called Stuff. I don't know, have you ever seen that, Lisa? But it's hysterical, as is George Carlin. But he's talking about how we have all of our stuff. I haven't seen it in a few years, but it's like we have a big house or a house. And then inside that house, we have smaller stuff. And we have a dresser. And inside that dresser, we have even smaller stuff. And maybe it's a smaller bag. And inside that smaller bag, we have smaller stuff. And then we want to go away for a weekend, and we have our weekend stuff. And so it's a whole skit around how we just have so much stuff everywhere. We just store stuff. And this practice that the Buddha taught initially to monastics was the Renunciate Path, meaning, like the Buddha himself, he had the life as a prince and all of that stuff that came along with it. And he renounced all of that. That's why he had beautiful long princely hair, and the symbol is him cutting his hair and the shaving of the head, symbolizing leaving the householder life and removing himself from the attachment to physical things. It's kind of where the teaching comes from. And he had 7 items. He left the princely clothes, and he sewed a bunch of cloth together for a robe, and he had a needle and a thread to sew the robe. He had a razor to shave his head. He had a block or something to sharpen the blade. He had almost like a strainer, a sifter, so you could get water without killing insects. So there was like 7 items that he carried with him. I probably have more than 7 items on me at this moment, and I'm sitting in an empty temple, right? Now, I went there because I think it's important to understand where the teaching comes from, which is, he said, I renounce physical possessions, worldly possessions. So the question really for me with that is, how do we then bring that into our lives as lay people who are not going to spend the rest of our lives with just 7 possessions? Oh, but how nice would that be? So the practice is called the middle path, the middle way. And one great metaphor I heard over the years is you have a guitar string or guitar. And if you have the strings and they're too tight, for anyone who's played guitar, and you try to play the strings, they will snap. If they're too loose, you get no sound. So you have to find a balance with the guitar. Otherwise, you break or you don't work. And that's like us. We as individuals have to find, or don't have to, but I suggest as a practitioner, if you're interested, that you find a balance, a middle way. Now, the thing I always want to point out there is there isn't a definite middle. What I mean by that is, and often you've heard probably, I use examples of food and clothes and things like that, right? And just, I don't know, maybe a month or two back before we shut down again, someone was here and I was talking about, how many clothes we have. So if someone has 50 shirts, maybe you get rid of 25 of them, give them to people who have no shirts and need shirts, and you have 25, and you'll still probably live okay. Right? And the middle also has nothing to do with like splitting 50 down to 25. That was just an example. But for someone who has 10 shirts, then maybe they get rid of a few, right? If you spend $50 on a meal, maybe you could spend 30 and use 20 to go feed somebody else. I had someone recently, and I laughed because I won't point out who they were, but I give these examples all the time of things I've done in my practice over the years. And I did this thing years ago when I was first starting that, when I, in my younger years, made a lot of money and spent a lot of money. And so when I got into Buddhist practice in 2003, I did this thing these first couple of years where like whatever, if I had money and I bought stuff, I then went and made sure that if I was going to buy food or clothes or whatever it was, that I was going to spend equal amount on someone else that needed it. And so recently, a few weeks ago, someone I've known for a while now, they made a donation to the temple. And they put a little comment in there that said they went and bought clothes. And so they wanted to donate equal amount to a place that needed it. And I just laughed. At first I laughed because I was like, man, I got to remember people actually listen to me. So be careful what I say. But second, the fact that I just found beauty in the fact that somebody was putting this practice into their life. And it's not about donating to temple. It's not my point. I don't plug that. But finding a balance for you is important because most of you right now probably have more food in your house and clothes in your house than you need. When there's, 5 miles from here, downtown San Diego, there's 10,000 people sleeping on the streets right now that have no food, no shelter, no clothes, or very minimal amounts of that. So I think it's important to understand that when it comes to material possessions and buying things, as you say, it's not the things that are bad or wrong. If you're brand new to Buddhism, I made this mistake early on when I started. When I had money and houses and cars and all this stuff, I was like, well, I'm Buddhist now. I got to get rid of all of that. I wish I had learned sooner that it wasn't having the things or the money or the houses or cars that were bad. Because you can do a lot of good with that stuff. But it was, how are you acquiring it? What are you doing with it when you have it? And what happens if you lose it? So the possessions, the material possessions and the things, you're not a bad person if you go out and buy some toy or gadget or shirt. This is not a judgment or a game of who can buy less things. The question is, what do you really need versus what you really want? And this is a really beautiful practice in discovering the middle way, because what you'll find is that, I don't want to assume anything, but I'm going to assume that so many things that we all consume and buy, we don't need. We want them, we crave them, we desire them, They bring us instant gratification, a sense of joy. We feel pride, we feel ego, all these things. And I'm not saying these things are wrong. This practice is not about right or wrong. It's about recognizing what do we need versus what do we want, and finding a balance there. So when you're out, shopping or online on Amazon or whatever it is, before you purchase something, ask yourself, do I need this? And again, I'm not saying that when you recognize you don't need it, that you need to not buy it, but at least start the habit of asking yourself, do I need this or do I want this? Because I don't want to send the message that middle path means getting rid of stuff. It's not about having or not having. It's a state of mind that recognizes, what am I attached to? What am I not able to renounce, to remove myself from? Just ask yourself these questions as a starting point. Do I need this? Do I want it? Why do I want it? What's it do for me? How does it make me feel? And when you start to ask yourself these questions, then you will begin to consume differently, potentially. So just some thoughts on that. Hopefully that's helpful. Lisa. All right, let's see. We have about 5 minutes left here. Let me just read these questions and comments here, and then I'll respond to this and we'll wrap up. Can you speak on how one should go about building a daily practice? Yes, let me come back to that in a second. I haven't seen it. Oh yeah, watch the skit. It's hysterical. Is there a time to stop showing compassion and treat others as they treat you when they are being disrespectful? That's an easy one. No. How would you stand your ground in those situations? So let me touch on that, and then I'll close with the daily practice. Actually, let me talk on the daily practice first, and then I'll close on the stand. No, I'm going to talk about the standing your ground now. Standing your ground in those situations, what you're suggesting is that potentially that you're more important than somebody else. And anytime I talk about things like this, I always want to point out, especially for those who might be new, that being Buddhist doesn't mean that when you're in an abusive, physically, mentally, emotionally relationship, and this is an example, but it's also a real life example that I see on a daily basis. Buddhist practice does not mean that if you're in a physically, emotionally, mentally abusive relationship, the Buddhist teaching is not to stand there and take it. It is to remove yourself from that situation. So everything I'm about to say, I'm not suggesting that you need to stay there. You remove yourself for your own safety and also for the wisdom, because if somebody's standing here punching me right now, I have two choices. I mean, there's many choices, but two basic ones is I could punch them back, or I could walk away or run away. Now, the choice to remove myself is wise and compassionate, because if I remove myself from being punched, then the person is no longer punching me. So I'm doing kindness and compassion towards myself and kindness and compassion towards the others. But when we make it about us, that's the problem. And this is really the root of your question. The first part, is there a time to stop showing compassion and treat others as they treat you? No. When people are abusive and angry and disrespectful, they don't need abuse and anger and disrespect back. That will make them more abusive, more angry, and more disrespectful. We have a choice. Like I said, if we want to remove ourselves from those situations, then we remove ourselves. But what those people need is more compassion, not anger, not hatred, right? That's the an eye for an eye leaves the world blind. That was Gandhi, right? I mean, that to me is fundamental Buddhist practice, that either remove yourself or find a way to cultivate compassion. Um, but throwing anger back is just putting a lot of expectations on how you want others to be. And the best way to really look at this is from your own lens. So for me, growing up an angry, depressed person who was mean and aggressive and threw out lots of hatred and anger towards people, that's because I was in pain. I was suffering. So anytime anyone is being that way towards you, it's really the same thing. They're suffering. People who roam around at peace and happy and joyful all day long don't hurt people that way. Hurt people hurt people. Something I heard years ago I thought was beautiful. Hurt people, meaning if we are hurt, we hurt others. And what we need is to end that cycle. So that person needs love and compassion. And if it can't be from you, then they need to get it elsewhere. So you never stop giving compassion. Years ago, somebody asked my master, do you ever feel that people take advantage of you? And he said, yes, every day. And that's why I'm here. And I just thought it was incredibly beautiful. Now, it might not be something we can do. Maybe we haven't cultivated that level of compassion, but just because we can't do something doesn't mean it's wrong. So, all right. And last thing, let me close on the question of a daily practice. So, most important with daily practice is just start. So, start with the meditation practice. When you wake up in the morning, brush your teeth, comb your hair, whatever it is you do, get your coffee, take a walk, whatever, to wake up, and then sit down and do 5 minutes of meditation every single day. You have a phone, set your phone. If you wake up at 6 a.m., then set it 6:10 to 6:15. Put it in your phone and say meditation, 5 minutes. And put it on your calendar, put it as a reminder, a daily reminder. And do that every single day for 3 weeks. And then take a week off. Recognize the difference, and then start again. But the daily practice doesn't have to be a 5-hour chore. It doesn't have to be an hour meditation. The question is, how do you build a daily practice? So building starts with a foundation. Any building, any structure, anything we want to build must have a strong foundation. Your foundation must start with a daily 5-minute practice. Well, I take that back. I said it must. What I suggest is you start with a daily 5-minute practice. If you are not sitting in meditation for 5 minutes a day, and you're just thinking about Buddhism, you need to sit. All right. So the best way to build it is to start with a 5-minute daily meditation practice. You don't need bells, you don't need whistles, you don't need a big shrine. Just sit down, close your eyes, and breathe for 5 minutes. Set a timer for 5 minutes and done. Start there. Do that, like I said, for 3 weeks. Take a week off, and then 4 weeks from today, let me know how that goes. And then I'll give you step 2. But that's step 1, and it must start there. Or I suggest it starts there. So hopefully that's helpful. I'm going to read one last thing before we close. I wasn't sure if I'd share it or not, but I think it's important with the question that you just asked. This is an Alan Watts quote I just came across. I thought was really beautiful. A wonderful Zen teacher, practitioner. He says, a person who thinks all the time has nothing to think about except thoughts. So they lose touch with reality and live in a world of illusions. I'll read it one more time. A person who thinks all the time has nothing to think about except thoughts. So they lose touch with reality and live in a world of illusions. Meaning, our own unenlightened, ignorant minds are just trying to figure everything out within our own unenlightened, ignorant minds. So, to go beyond that illusion and story that's in your head that you're telling yourself all day long about how you're not this enough, not that enough, not good enough, but whatever. This won't work, that won't work, everything sucks. All those illusions and stories in your head, set them down and sit and breathe. So, all right, so we'll close on that. We'll join palms. We'll do a transfer of merit. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all be at peace and free from suffering. May the merit gained be transferred to more than 5.5 million people who have died during this pandemic and their family and friends who continue to suffer at this time. May they all be at peace and free from suffering. May we all be at peace and free from suffering. So a few quick announcements before you head out. Thanks again for being here. My name is Jeff. I'm a Dharma bum. We opened this temple 15 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. So thanks for showing up. Those of us who lead, we're not monks, we're not nuns, we're not gurus, we're not masters, we're not teachers. We're not looking for students, we're just practitioners. We do our best to take our understanding of Buddhist teachings and put it into terms that hopefully make sense to those who show up. Every night we have different practices going on. Every morning, Monday through Friday, we sit silent meditation, 8 and 8:30. That's something, Mr. Cemetery Man, you could do also. We sit 8 and 8:30, Monday through Friday. Everything is still virtual. Temple is still closed. We shut down for 16 months when the pandemic started. We opened up for 6 months and we closed again about 6 weeks ago. Buddha for You is also still closed. If you need anything there, you can jump on the website. Shop online, they'll ship it, or you can pick up curbside. As I mentioned at the beginning, we are, which each day that passes, obviously we get closer to opening. So those who know me know that that could be misleading when I say we're getting closer to opening. But I truly believe as of this moment, the way things are right now, at some point over the next couple of weeks, we will probably open up again. So just sit tight, keep checking the website or, checking in here. We'll let you know, but hopefully we're not too much further off, returning back to how it was when we opened for about 6 months. So thanks all for being here. Be safe, be well. Good luck with everything, and we'll see you soon.